Hello students, welcome to the channel. Today we'll do a drill on comparisons which would work for both SAT and ACT grammar. So let's begin. Question 1. When exposed to speech that lacks its typical lower tones, the human brain automatically reconstructs the missing frequencies. This capacity helps people hear human voices more clearly than hearing less important sounds. So in any question on the writing section, you should be very sure of the context and the meaning that the sentence is trying to convey. So here we are saying that when exposed to speech that is atypical, that does not have lower tones, the human brain compensates by reconstructing the missing frequencies. And it helps because this capacity lets people hear human voices more clearly than hearing less important sounds. So the cardinal rule of comparisons is that you compare like things with like things, right? Like you compare apples with apples, okay? So I'm saying that this capacity here helps people hear human voices more clearly than. So I'm comparing human voices and I need to compare something which is similar to human voices. And that is going to be less important sounds, right? I don't have to repeat the word hearing because the word hearing is already implied in this verb here, right? I'm saying this helps people hear more human voices more clearly than less important sounds. So when you're comparing two things, ask yourself, what do I need in the underlying portion? What am I comparing? I'm comparing a human voice with a less important sound. So any option that has hearing can be eliminated because we don't have to repeat the word hearing. Now, this capacity helps people hear human voices more clearly than those of less important sounds. If I say those of less important sounds, that's like saying voices of less important sounds. Because those here will act as the pronoun for voices. And that doesn't make sense because I'm comparing human voice with the sound, not the voice of a sound, because the sound doesn't have a voice, it's just a sound. So D distorts the meaning, and so the right answer is option B. Okay, let's go to the next question. In 2013, solar installers' wages averaged $23.63 per hour, comparable to those of skilled electricians and plumbers. Now, again, what are you comparing here? You're comparing wages. You're comparing the wages of solar installers with the wages of skilled electricians and plumbers. So when you say wages of skilled electricians and plumbers, you can use the pronoun those because that acts as a replacement for the noun wages. So actually the way it's written is good. So I'm going to keep it for now. Now, if I look at option B, in option B, I'm saying comparable to a skilled electrician or plumber. And that's not correct because I have to compare wages. I can't compare the solar installer's wages with a skilled electrician or plumber. So B, and for the same reason, D are wrong because they don't compare wages with wages. Now, option C, comparable to wages earned by a skilled electrician and plumbers. So this has some sort of a mismatch, right? The first thing I notice is it's not parallel because if I'm saying wages earned by, then I should use the plural here and the plural here. So plumbers is already in plural, but a skilled electrician is not in plural because I'm talking about a group wages, right? The wages of a professional group. So I'm comparing the wages of solar installers with the wages of skilled electricians and plumbers. So because of this mismatch, this is not the best answer. And so the best, the concise, the correct answer is option A. Okay, Question 3, job sharing initiatives may involve some extra cost for companies since the salaries and cost of benefits for two job sharing employees are usually higher than being for a single employee. So the first thing I notice is that this being is really off here, right? Being is not used like this. So because being is normally used only when you're talking about, like, for example, when you have the present continuous form of the word is, right? So let me think of an example. He's being late for a reason. That's an example, which means that he's late. Currently, he's late for a reason. So that's like the only way you can probably use being on the SAT or ACT grammar, but not otherwise, right? It is not something that you should accept easily, right? It's not a word that is a favorite of SAT and ACT grammar. So just reading this, I'm not very sure of this option. So I'll cancel A. Now I need to understand what is it that I'm comparing. I'm comparing the salaries and cost of benefits for two employees with that or those for a single employee. And between that and those, I would naturally have to choose those because I have a plural here, salaries and cost of benefits, which is a plural, right? So I will not take any option that has that, right? I like option C because option C says those for a single employee. Salaries and cost of benefits for two employees are higher than those for a single employee. Okay, then if I delete the underlying portion, it creates a comparison mismatch because then it would be saying salaries and cost of benefits for two employees are higher than a single employee. And I cannot compare salaries and cost of benefits with employee. I have to compare salaries and cost of benefits for one with salaries and cost of benefits for the other. So the pronoun those conveys that correctly. And so the right answer is option C. Okay, let's go to question 4. Studies of test scores show that watching television has a markedly positive effect on children whose parents speak English as a second language as compared with those who are native English speakers. Now, this is an interesting question because I have a comparison, but it's sort of a complicated comparison because I'm comparing children. I'm talking about test scores and I'm comparing children whose parents speak English as a second language with children whose parents are native speakers, right? Because that's the valid comparison. If I'm comparing children with parents having a certain quality, this quality being that they speak English as a second language, then I have to compare this with children who have parents with a certain other quality, which in this case is that those parents are native English speakers. So the first thing I notice is that I'm not comfortable with option A because in option A, I'm comparing children with children, right? I'm saying children who are native English speakers, right? Because I mean, that's the best understanding of the pronoun those, even though those is a little ambiguous because if I'm trying to use those for parents, that is a wrong comparison. And if I'm trying to use those for children, that is also a wrong comparison because it is not the children who are native English speakers. It is the parents who are native English speakers. So option A, the way it's written is not very clear. So I'll cancel it out. Okay, option B does not have a pronoun ambiguity, but the comparison is still wrong. I'm not comparing children whose parents speak English as a second language with children who are native English speakers. My comparison has to be with parents, right? So B is out. Now, if I just put C, then that doesn't make any sense as a comparison because who is it am I comparing? If I say children whose parents speak English as a second language as compared with native English speakers, then I'm just like broadening the scope of the comparison to all native speakers, and that doesn't make sense, right? It's a very specific situation of comparing children with parents of a certain quality with children having parents of a certain other quality. So C is not correct. Now D actually makes the best sense because it is not ambiguous and it makes the correct comparison. And this ultimately says that if you watch television, then test course results show that watching television has a positive effect on children whose parents speak English as a second language, as compared with children whose parents are native English speakers. So I'm making the correct comparison here between children, at the same time involving parents with certain qualities. So my right answer is option D. Okay. Question 5. Compulsory volunteering in school does not necessarily create lifelong volunteers. Students who were required to volunteer rushed to complete their service hours in early high school. They then did significantly less regular volunteer work in the 12th grade than the service hours of those not required to volunteer. So let's again always first look at what the sentence is trying to say. So here I'm talking about compulsory volunteering. That is when students are made to undertake volunteering tasks in school. And the passage is telling me that compulsory volunteering is not the best idea to inculcate the habit of volunteering in students. Because if you look at the experience of students who were made to volunteer, they kind of rushed through it in early high school and did not do any of it or very little of it in the 12th grade, compared to students who were not required to volunteer. So volunteering as an activity should not be enforced on students. Now, here the comparison is interesting because here I'm saying they then did significantly less regular volunteering work. So I'm talking about the action of a group, the action of the group that were required to volunteer. They did significantly less regular work. So the comparison is about the action, the less volunteer work. Now, the first issue is I have to compare students with students. So I cannot compare it with service hours. So option A and option C are clearly incorrect, right? Because they don't compare students with students, right? Now, in option B, I'm saying, so they is the group that was forced to volunteer. That group did significantly less regular volunteer work in the 12th grade than did students who were. And this than did students who were makes sense because this also is an action which is kind of analogous to the action that my sentence had. And so it creates a comparison, or rather it avoids a comparison mismatch by including a comparison between two like things. So I like option B. Now look at option D. In option D, I'm saying they then did significantly less regular volunteer work in the 12th grade compared with students not required to volunteer. Now, this may seem like a good option. And in fact, a lot of students tend to choose D as the right answer for this. But if you think about it, you are effectively not comparing students with students only. You're comparing the action of a student group with the action of another student group, right? So when you're saying that the first group did significantly less regular work, then it is the action of this group that I'm talking about. And I need to compare it with the action of the second group, which option B does. Option D compares an action with a noun, because in option D, I have students, which is the noun here, and this does not compare the action that I was talking about. So the trick in these questions is to look at what is being compared. Am I comparing two nouns? Am I saying that students in grade 11 are are taller in general than students in grade 12? Then I'm comparing students with students, right? But if I have an action that I'm comparing, which is to say students enforced or students forced to volunteer did less volunteer work in grade 12 than did students who were not asked to volunteer. So here the comparison is between actions, and so the better answer, or rather the best answer, is option B, right? Okay, so that was a comparisons drill. Hope you found it useful. I have uploaded a lot more grammar drills on the channel, and I would provide a link in the description box here. So do check those out and let me know in the comment section if they were useful. I'll see you guys in another video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.